Sorry to say, but I'm going to start this video with a brief lecture because one of the most important things an administrator can do on a daily basis is to ensure that the SCOM agents you've deployed in your environment are working properly. Now, this is a critically important thing to understand because if the agent isn't working, if you've got a situation like this where we've got some grey agents, then you're not going to be notified. And that could be a major issue if you're relying on SCOM, which of course you would be, to tell you that your application or your service isn't working. And this could mean us not meeting our SLAs. It could mean monetary penalties if we're not delivering on our contractual agreements. And it also just looks bad in front of our clients and our customers and even our peers. And the last thing we need at our company is to look incompetent to our customers or to be giving away money. So whilst we all have our jobs to do, and for some of you managing SCOM is just one of your tasks, for people like me it's a career, but either way it's imperative that when an agent goes bad that we get on top of it right away and we fix it so SCOM can do its job and let you know what's going on in your environment. Now I really can't stress that enough. If your agent doesn't work, SCOM won't monitor anything, so be vigilant and fix any problematic agents. Alright, well I've harped on enough about the importance of having working agents, so let's have a look in this video at how we can troubleshoot agents that aren't playing ball. Firstly, the location of the agent and indeed the display name of the agent's service will depend on what version of SCOM we're running. Now in a SCOM 2007 environment, the agent will be installed on your system drive, which is normally a C drive of course, in the Program Files System Center Operations Manager folder. Now in a SCOM 2012 or 2016 environment like I'm running here, the agent will be installed on your system drive under Program Files in a folder called Microsoft Monitoring Agent. Now this is assuming that you've used the default path for the agent of course. Now if you have installed it in a non-standard location, you can find out where it's installed by checking out the following registry key. So I've just quickly switched over to an agent machine, so let's go and fire up regedit. And we'll expand HK Local Machine, Software, Microsoft, and we will scroll down and find Microsoft Operations Manager 3.0, and let's choose Setup. And over here on the right we can see the current installation directory. We can also see the product name. Oh, and also take note we can see the agent version which is installed as well. Now, irrespective of what version of SCOM you might be using, the actual process name, or service name rather, for the agent is called Health Service. So if we go and open up the Services console and head down to Microsoft Monitoring Agent, we can see that's the one right there. If we right click on this and choose Properties, you'll see the actual name of the service is called Health Service, and this is the same for all versions of SCOM, just the display name will be different in older versions of SCOM. Alright, now this service should be set to automatic, and obviously it should be also running, so if either of these things aren't true, then that's your first troubleshooting step right there. Make sure it is running and set to automatically start whenever the service starts. So when we start troubleshooting our agents, one of the first questions I would ask myself is this a newly installed agent? Maybe you've just installed it and it doesn't seem to be turning up as healthy in the console. Or is this an agent that's been installed some time ago and it's now not responding? Maybe it's gone grey in the console like you saw just before. And maybe you expected an alert from it, you didn't get one. So just switching back to my Ops Manager console, let's consider a scenario whereby this is a newly installed agent first. Now if it is, there's a couple of things we really want to check first. So did you use the Discovery Wizard to push the agent out? Now that Discovery Wizard can be found here on the Administration tab. There's the Discovery Wizard right there. So if we use this to push out the agent and it didn't work, then you should check the error message that you'd be getting in the console. Now generally I'd suggest the likely causes is either your account doesn't have the right permissions on the server that you're trying to install it on, or perhaps you might be getting an RPC error and that's preventing the installation from taking place. Now the output window you'll get from this wizard will help you to look in the right place, but I would log on to the offending server and check by trying a manual installation because sometimes the installer will offer up some other error like a WMI problem or something else. Now if you didn't use this Discovery Wizard to push the agent out, instead you manually installed the agent using either a real manual installation by double-clicking the executable or some other deployment utility like SCCM or a script or something else, if you did that, then there's a fair chance that SCOM has placed the agent in pending management. So I'd come here and have a check. Now if it is here, simply select the agent and then click Approve in the Actions pane here on the right-hand side. And that would be a most likely cause, because if it's here in pending management, then the agent is talking to the management server. It's just not authorized to be accepted into SCOM. So in that case, approve it and we're done. Now, if it isn't here, then check to see if this agent has the ability to contact its assigned gateway or management server on TCP port 5723. Now, I do have a script on my blog designed to test exactly this scenario. So if you come here to my blog at cullum.net and you could type in port, and if we scroll down, we can see we've got a checking connectivity to ports using Windows PowerShell. So let's open that up and you'll be able to see the URL here. Now, if you run this script and it comes back with the port is open, then connectivity definitely isn't your problem. If it says the port is closed, then yes, you most likely have a firewall problem. So open up the port to the management server and then try again. Now, if the agent still won't connect, try restarting the health service. Now, when I restart the health service, I like to open up the Ops Manager event log just so I can see what the agent's doing. Now, the Ops Manager event log is really good at telling you what's wrong, so make sure you go ahead and use it. Now, any critical events you should look at because they will almost certainly point you in the right direction, but I'll talk more about that Ops Manager event log in just a moment. So another thing to ask yourself is this agent in a DMZ? Again, if it is, check the TCP port 5723, as connectivity is an obvious one to check. But can the agent also resolve the name of the management server? You might require a host file entry in some cases, depending on whether or not you can use DNS in your DMZ. Now, if it's not a network or firewall related thing, and it's not in pending management, and you are in a DMZ, well, I'd bet anything it's most likely a certificate issue. You see, Windows agents communicate with their assigned management server or gateway using Kerberos to authenticate. When we're dealing with agents that live outside the domain, such as in a DMZ, or maybe they're Linux or Unix agents, they need certificates to authenticate. So, whilst in my lab I don't have any agents that utilize third-party certificates for authentication, now we'll produce videos later on that show you how to create and configure certificates, but for now I'll just give you a small primer on the topic. So back on my agent here, let's click and we'll open up an MMC console and we'll go to the file menu and we'll choose add remove Snapin. We're going to add the certificate Snapin. So let's double click on that one. We'll select computer account and next, and then we'll leave the default here for local computer and click finish and then OK. Now let's expand our local computer certificate store. And what we should see in our personal store would be a valid certificate that's trusted and not expired, and the name of this certificate should match the host name of the server exactly. Now, if it doesn't meet that criteria, then authentication is going to fail. But you will see errors in the event log that will help you identify certificate problems. Again, this is something I'm going to tackle in later videos. Now, the final thing you might want to check is that you didn't spell the name of the gateway or management server wrong. So if we open up the control panel, and I'm just going to change this to small icons, you'll see we've got a Microsoft Monitoring Agent applet here. So let's open that up. And then we can see to which management server this agent is pointing. Now, in a discovery-based installation, you really can't muck this up because you're going to choose a management server from a drop-down list. But in a silent installation or an otherwise manually installed method, you're going to have to write down the name of the server. So there is room for error there. Okay, well, let's just assume that this agent happens to be an existing agent that stopped working. So maybe it's showing as grey in the console. So one of the first things I like to do, and quite frankly, almost always do throughout the process of troubleshooting SCOM agents, is to check the event log on the agent. Now, the Operations Manager event log really is your best friend when it comes to troubleshooting, and to be honest, if you don't find anything in there that points you in the right direction, then you probably have a more obscure and unusual problem, or the problem's actually elsewhere. Okay, so we're on a server that's running a SCOM agent, so let's go and take a look at the event log, and we'll familiarize ourselves with some of the more important event IDs we can look at when we're troubleshooting. So let's go and open up the event viewer and let's expand that. And we're going to expand Application and Services Logs. And then we're going to choose Operations Manager. All right, now I'm quickly going to switch back somewhere here to my Services console. And I'm just going to temporarily stop our Microsoft Monitoring Agent. Okay, that's stopped. And back here in our event log, I'm going to clear this log, just so we can see things a bit more cleanly. All right, so let's restart our service. And we'll refresh our log. And you might have to do this a few times, as it could be super quick in a small environment like mine, but it could take some minutes in a really busy environment to start populating this log fully. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this log. Now, I'm not going to go through all of it, just some of the key things that we would expect to see. Now, hopefully, like you're seeing with my log, there's no critical errors. We've got a couple of warnings here, so that's a reasonably good sign. All right, so the first couple of events off the bat we've got from our health service ESE store. We should see an event telling us that our database is starting up a new instance. We can see that it has started a new instance, and this one here for 326 will be telling us the path to our new database instance. Now, at the start of this, you can also see the process ID or PID for the health service as well. So if you wanted to use Windows PowerShell or Task Manager, you could locate the health service to verify that. So if we just quickly go and open up a PowerShell prompt and type in get process followed by ID and then the ID of 7488, and let's hit enter. And obviously we're going to get back the Microsoft Monitoring Agent or health service as this default view shows. All right, back to our event log. Since we're not using Active Directory integration for this installation, you can see we've got a 2011 event saying we didn't find any policy in AD. And the one above it, 20063, pretty much tells us the same thing, that AD integration isn't in use in this management group. Okay, next we've got a 2002 event showing us that our management group has been started since this agent was restarted. And up the top here, a little bit higher, we'll have a 21024 event where our agent is going to try and request a new configuration. Now down below, we're going to see some events in the 7000 range telling us of any run as account issues. So what we would see is a 7026 event for each account that we're trying to validate, and then we'll also get a 7019 event like you see here, telling us if the agent was successfully able to validate them all. Now in my case, you can see we didn't get a 7026 event because I haven't populated any runners accounts yet, and you can see obviously here this is saying exactly that we've currently got 0. Now next we're also going to see a 7006 event telling us that the health service was able to publish the public key that you see here, and it'll use that to communicate with the management group, which pops it into the SQL database. So when the configuration service generates a configuration for this agent, it looks up this public key for the agent, and then it uses that key to encrypt the XML. So if we go to our certificates MMC, which I still have open there, I think I do. And if we go into our Microsoft Monitoring Agent, we'll expand that and choose certificates. Right here is our certificate that's self-issued when we install our agent. So let's open that up and we'll go to details and we'll have a look at the serial number. And what we're expecting to see is this serial number match what we saw in the event log. So let's just check these numbers. It starts with 16 and ends in 33. Let's go back here and we can see it starts in 16 and obviously ends in 33. Cool. All right, well, the next entry in our event log we care about here is we've skipped this one, 21026, which is saying that this agent has received confirmation that the configuration is up to date. And let's ignore these ones here and scoot all the way up to our 1210 event. And this is the event I really like to see because this one tells me that the agent has got its new configuration and that configuration is active. So once you see this 1210 event, you can be pretty confident the agent is now working. Okay, but what if we don't get a 1210 event? What if it doesn't appear and our agent isn't getting the configuration it needs? Well, the next step I like to perform is to flush the agent health service cache. Now this will delete the old configuration from this agent, and it will force this agent to contact this management server to download a new one. So in effect, it's refreshing the configuration on the agent. Now, this will also force the agent to have to run all of its discoveries again, so bear all that in mind, although this could be a good thing because hopefully it can fix an agent where those things might not have been working properly. Alright, so let's go and open up a command prompt in administrator mode on obviously the affected agent. Now you can use the services MMC if you prefer and then stop the Microsoft monitoring agent as we did the command prompt. Now regardless of which version of SCOM we're using, we're going to execute the following command, net stop health service, and we'll hit enter. Now this will obviously stop the health service, and this is important because the health service state folder, which we're going to locate in a moment, is where the configuration for this agent is being stored. Now these files will be in use right now, so we can't just go and delete things. So stopping this service gracefully in this way is going to free up those in-use files so we can delete them. All right, now obviously our service has been stopped, we can see that. So let's go and open up Windows Explorer, and we'll navigate to the path where this agent has been installed. Now, this will likely be on our system drive, so that's going to be our C drive. Program files, Microsoft Monitoring Agent, followed by Agent. And then we need to locate the Health Service State folder. Now, to clear the cache, we can either open up this folder and just delete all the contents of the folder itself, or we can just delete the entire folder. So, let's right-click and choose Delete. Okay, it's gone. And now we can go back to our command prompt and start up the health service again by issuing the following command, which is obviously going to be net start health service. So let's hit enter there, and that's starting up, and let's go back to our Windows Explorer, and we can see our health service state folder has already been recreated, and our agent is now going to head off to its assigned gateway or management server and request a new configuration. So if we open up our event log again, we should, if we refresh this, start seeing our agent chatting with its assigned server, and then it's going to start downloading all of the management packs so it can run all the discoveries, and then SCOM can identify what applications and such that it needs to monitor for this agent. And eventually, we're going to expect to see our 1210 event again, indicating that this agent is now communicating with SCOM properly. And we'd also obviously expect to see that agent go healthy in the SCOM console as well. Now, generally speaking, flushing a cache in this way will fix most problems that aren't communication related. Now, obviously, if we've got a certificate issue or firewall ports unopen, then flushing this cache is going to have little effect. But assuming that those things aren't issues, then flushing the cache will most likely restore some order to this agent. However, in the event that flushing the cache doesn't work, we could always revert back to the more drastic option of reinstalling the agent. Now, for this, it's pretty simple. We're just going to add remove programs on the affected server and uninstall the agent. And then, of course, we'd reinstall it using one of the many methods we've already talked about. Using the discovery wizard, we could manually install it, we could do a silent installation, or we could push the agent out to a server using a tool like SCCM. Now, before I wrap this video up, I also want to point out that it's a good idea to keep in the back of your mind if you're troubleshooting a single agent, or do you have a whole bunch of agents that have gone grey. If all agents are grey that connect to a gateway or a management server, then it's probably the management server that's at fault and not the agent itself. For example, I once had a situation where I couldn't get any agents to connect to their assigned gateway, and it was constantly going grey. So what we ended up doing was we used Wireshark to identify that the packets between our two gateways were oversized. And I used this cool little latency tool that showed the latency between two gateways was a little over 120 milliseconds. So we really had two problems there. SCOM, according to Microsoft's best practice, requires network connectivity with a latency of 5 milliseconds or less. Now, the reality is it will work with higher than that, but that's the best practice as Microsoft see it. Now, in this case, it turned out that the routing was configured to go outside the country via another country and then back again. Now, once that was identified and corrected, the latency returned to a much more acceptable 15 or so milliseconds, still above Microsoft's recommendation, but perfectly acceptable in the real world. Now, through our Wireshark captures, we also identified that the packets were also being dropped as they were oversized because of the way the network VPN and routing was configured between the two gateways. So we set an MTU at 1200, I think it was, on both gateways, and suddenly everything went green, and I believe it's worked fine ever since. So whilst such an experience is rare, I mean, it's so rare I've only ever seen it happen that once, But keep in the back of your mind some of the troubleshooting steps I've talked about, because whilst the overwhelming majority of your agent troubleshooting will be simple things like restarting the health service or flushing the cache or checking TCP port 5723 connectivity to the management server, or looking in pending management, or maybe you've got an expired or a misconfigured certificate. But sometimes, and not very often mind you, you might just come across something obscure like I've just described. So firstly, identify if it's a single agent or many. If it's many, focus on the gateway or the management server. If it's a single agent, then obviously focus your attentions there. And remember, like I've already stated, if nothing else seems to work and you've exhausted the suggestions in this video, remove the agent. I'd suggest rebooting the server, although that's not strictly necessary, and then reinstall the agent. Now, as I wrap up this video, I'd also like to make mention of housekeeping as well. I know that not all agents that are grey in a console are indeed a problem as such. Just switching back to my console here, looking at this grey agent, sometimes what happens is people decommission a server and they don't tell us SCOM guys. Now, the problem with this approach is that SCOM is going to continually complain about this agent. It looks bad in the console with a whole bunch of errors and grey agent states, and frankly, should be cleaned up. So make it part of your decommission process to also notify the SCOM guys or girls and get them to remove the agent from the console. This way, you'll not only have a cleaner looking console, but your reports are going to be more accurate, your console's going to have less heartbeat failures and less failed to connect computer alarms, and you're going to get less false callouts and tickets in your name. Now, there's nothing finer than when SCOM is up to date and all of your agents are installed and accounted for. Now, further to this, it's also equally important to ensure that every server that is supposed to have an agent indeed does have an agent. So however you choose to do that, whether it's marrying up the servers that you've got in Active Directory, for example, with the agents in SCOM, that's one way to do it. We could use our CI database, something like ServiceNow, and ensure our CIs in that application match SCOM. Whatever way you do it, just do it. Remember, a malfunctioning agent isn't going to be monitored, and of course a server without an agent isn't going to help you much either. So troubleshooting our SCOM agents in most cases isn't a difficult thing to do, but it's vitally important that you do get your agents working properly. We simply don't want to miss important alarms and events and having to use the excuse of, oh, sorry, we didn't catch Exchange server falling over because our SCOM agent wasn't working. That's simply not good enough. A bit of housekeeping will go a long way to ensure that you as the SCOM guy or girl and your colleagues are going to be happy and confident that monitoring is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd like to thank you for watching.